How are the nerves? Are you feeling confident?
Yeah, I mean, slightly confident. I think England will need to improve on the performances that we've seen. And I just think eventually England have to put in some sort of performance in this tournament. We've got too many good players, and hopefully it's later this afternoon.
In terms of team news, looking like Ezri Konsa will start in place of the suspended Mark Guéhi. How challenging is it to come in for a game of this magnitude?
Yeah, it'll be more mental, I think, for Enzi coming in because he hasn't got a great deal of international experience. I think playing in a back three probably suits him because he's one of those players who, probably similar to himself in the past, where sometimes you play full-back, sometimes you play centre-back. So playing actually in a wide centre-back role in some ways is playing to your strengths. It looks like he'll play on the left, which will not be easy at all in terms of dealing with the ball and also defending as well. One-on-one defending, the way your body movements work, your feet positions as well are slightly different because he's normally someone who plays on that right side. But I mean, that's one of the reasons why I championed, I think, Jared Brandtwaite to go into the squad, because if we ever went to a back three at some stage, it's, that natural left foot on that side. But we haven't really got a centre-back with a left foot. So, Konsa goes in. He's got sort of 6 or 7 caps. So this will be a huge moment for him.
I mean, you touched on it there, that potential switch to a 3 at the back with Kieran Trippier as a right wing back, Bukayo Saka on the left. That is what we understand that Gareth Southgate is going to do tonight. What do you make of all that?
I think the manager had to do something. He had to change something, whether that was personnel or the system. I can understand them changing the system because if you get to the stage where you're saying, OK, maybe we change 3 players, you then maybe bring in 3 players in who've maybe not played a full 90 minutes then for probably 4 to 6 weeks since maybe the warm-up games for England or a game for the club. So that might be a problem. So he's gone to a change of system that he's used before. The wing-backs, that's the big sort of question mark, I think, going into this game. You're taking Bukayo Saka, who's played sort of right wing to left wing back. Yes, he's left-footed, but it's not a role he's played for an awful long time. And in Kieran Trippier, who's done a decent job at left back, he's picked him over Trent Alexander-Arnold, which I just cannot fathom at all. I mean, that's not, the Liverpool fan in me. I've for a long time, I've always felt, it was right that Kyle Walker played right back for England. I thought it was right that Gareth experimented with Trent in midfield because he's got, obviously, world-class ability on the ball, but it didn't quite work. And I said, he's got to be taken out the team. But the reason that you play Trippier over Trent, I can't get my head around. The only reason would be that, Kieran's played maybe a few more games, maybe he trusts him. But when you say defensively, the whole point of playing 3 at the back is to release your wing backs, and you've got Kyle Walker behind you. He's the quickest player in the squad to mop up anything if you get caught out defensively. So to not put Trent in that position, I cannot believe that one. I must be honest, and I can only imagine where his head is right now in this tournament. But Kieran Trippier is a player who Gareth trusts. He puts him in, whether it be left back, right wing back, left wing back. He always seems to find a place for him. But that's one that I would have played Trent in that position.
Yeah, because I was going to ask you about that. Do you feel a little bit for Trent Alexander-Arnold?
Yeah, I do. But listen, I played in an era when there was a lot of great centre-backs. I very rarely played for England. And Trent come through in an era where there's a lot of great right-backs. Now, Kyle Walker's obviously getting older. And I think after this tournament, Trent Alexander-Arnold has to be England's right back, whether that's in a back 4 or a back 5. You have to give him his head because he's too good of a player. But Kieran Trippier, as I said, he's a good player. He hasn't had a great season at Newcastle. He's done okay for England at left back, done a really solid job as well as he could possibly do. But to play ahead of Trent, I just don't see that at all. Trent has got world-class ability. Kieran Trippier is a very good player who's at times had a difficult season for Newcastle. So I do feel for him in this one. A lot of people were saying they felt for him in terms of going into midfield and then getting dropped. But, he was given his chance in 2 games in midfield and he didn't really produce. Trent or the team didn't produce as well. So I felt, you had to accept that he was taking out the team. But this one, I think, will be a really tough pill to swallow for him.
Well, it could mean that we see both Phil Foden and Jude Bellingham playing advanced and centrally. Do you think that is the way to get the best out of them?
To be honest, I get asked this question every time I come on. It's not having a go at you or nothing like that. But the two have played central right throughout the tournament. Phil Foden hasn't played on the left. Phil Foden's been all over the place. That might have been actually one of the problems for us. Phil Foden's just played on the left defensively, whenever England have had the ball, Phil Foden's been allowed to go and drift and go into the centre. And one of the problems is we've had too many players in the centre. So this is not about getting Phil Foden in his best position as such. But listen, it might work. He might get on the ball more. He might have to go to the left defensively now. So, that might help him. Maybe when there's a turnover, he's already in that central position. We can get the ball to him quicker. But again, I mean, the problem with this system is you look at it and think, about Harry Kane, he likes to drop in. That hasn't quite worked as well, but it's important we get people, whether it's Jude Bellingham, Foden, or the two wing-backs, have got to make runs in behind, because not everybody can keep coming to feet for the ball.
And people have been crying out for a change, whether it's fans, whether it's journalists, whether it's pundits. Do you think that this change in formation is just purely to match Switzerland, or do you think it is recognition that things haven't quite worked so far?
Well, we'll only know the answer to that question if we get through to the semi-final. I think in this tournament we've had real problems against opposition who've played three at the back. Now, Switzerland played three at the back, and I actually think it'll be more to match them up, really, if I'm being honest, rather than Gareth Southgate thinking I'm going to change something at this stage of the competition. I think if you look at the opponents Switzerland have had, certainly in the group stage, they had problems against Scotland. I think that game finished 1-1, and Scotland played a back three or a back five, however you want to talk about it, and matched them up and caused Switzerland problems. So I think when you're looking back at Switzerland's games and how tough they found it in certain games, I think Gareth and his coaching staff will probably look back at that Scotland game and see if there's things that they can take out of that, and then think, well, actually, we've got more quality in our team than Scotland's, and we can actually hurt them even more rather than get a draw and just go on and beat them.
And I touched on that criticism around performances as well as the tactics so far. Jamie, if you were in charge, what would you change, and what would you be saying to the players ahead of this one?
Well, for me, I've felt there needs to be more penetration in the team, and that, again, is my big worry when I look at the setup. That we've got a centre forward who doesn't run in behind, but you have to play him. He's your captain, and he's one of the best goal scorers in Wales football, so he has to play. But he needs pace and people running in behind him. And I was calling after a couple of games that, whether that was Anthony Gordon coming in just to provide that extra pace alongside Saka, either side of Harry Kane. And even though we've changed the system, I think it doesn't yet sort of fix that problem, because I can still see Phil Foden coming to feet, Bellingham coming to feet, Kieran Trippier and Saka will be very deep anyway, because they're in between a full-back position and a winger position, so it's difficult for them to really get high and run in behind, and that's why I'm disappointed Trent's not playing, because I just think he would just naturally play maybe 5-10 yards higher, because I think he's more of an attacking full-back than Kieran Trippier is. Saka, I'm sure, will give licence to actually push on, but you've got to get back as well, so it's a tough job, the wing-back. So yeah, I think something had to change. Could have been personnel, could be system, but we need people to run in behind Harry Kane and penetrate the opposition, and we haven't done that all tournament. And when you look at that team, it doesn't look like there's too many players who can do that. I just hope the players who are on the pitch, especially Bellingham and Foden, don't just keep thinking, I've got to get the ball between the lines. One of them's got to do that, but one of them's got to run in behind and help Harry Kane.
And, I mean, some suggestions with all this criticism that's been coming, that actually the England camp are paying no attention to it, really. From a player's perspective, Jamie, how easy is it to kind of cut out all that noise and just concentrate on what you have to do?
Well, it was a lot easier when I was playing, because that was just the papers, really, and, the papers could be stopped coming to the hotel. But, your family and friends, you'd speak to them on the phone. But listen, I think your family and friends are clever enough not to say, oh, this person said this about you or that about you. But I think it's virtually impossible now with social media. Everyone's got the phones in the rooms, everything's, there's a lot more pundits, a lot more opinions out there as well. So it will get back to the players, but it is important for them to try and sort of shut it out as much as possible. But I think it's virtually impossible. But they don't certainly want to get rammed down the throat of people phoning them and texting them and letting them know what's going on. I mean, the best thing you can do is turn the social medias off a few days before the game, concentrate on the game, and hopefully they can get the right results, and then it'll back to being positive again.
Well, let's be positive, because Gareth Southgate's going to be taking charge of his 100th England game. How big an achievement is that? Massive.
And listen, he splits opinion, but to be in a job that long shows he's done a great job. And again, I think England can get through, get to another semi-final. Yes, the performance hasn't been great in this tournament, but this is the first tournament, I would say, where we haven't really performed. More often than not, we've got the results and performance. At the moment, we're just getting the results. Hopefully those performances will come, because results are more important than performances. But more often than not, you don't get results without performance, and that's why England have to improve. But for Gareth Southgate to get to 100 games for England, I think is a remarkable achievement. And as I said, I think he's done a brilliant job, and hopefully he can go one step further in this tournament.
I mean, how much pressure is he under? And if it were to be his last game for England, what do you think his legacy will be?
The England manager is under pressure. That's the nature of the job. I mean, I don't see this thing of being under pressure to lose his job. I think if he wanted to stay, I think the FA had let him stay. I think the FA wouldn't get involved in all the noise and the circus around sort of England going out today. I think they'd look at what Gareth's done over 8 years, the relationship he's got with his players, and think, is he the guy to take us forward? I actually think it'd be Gareth Southgate's decision. I don't think it'd be down to the FA. I don't think it'd be getting hounded out by the press, or a decision we made in the next few days. I think if it doesn't go well, I actually think Gareth will walk away. But I think if Gareth wants to take this England squad and team to the next tournament in America, I think he can do that.
And just before you go, we've got to get a quick word on Liverpool. We saw Arne Slot speaking to the media yesterday for the first time since replacing Jurgen Klopps. But what did you make of it, and just how big a job has he got on his hands?
Well, he's got a big job because he's Liverpool manager. Liverpool are one of the biggest clubs in the world. So no matter who comes in or who you follow, you're always, be a big job and expected to compete and win trophies. So that won't change. I thought he came across really well in his press conference. Of course, people are asking him questions and maybe trying to trip him up and get him to say something. I thought he was really concise and switched on, and was sort of reading the question between the lines rather than what the question was, and knew where people were trying to take him. So, that bodes well for the future, because I think dealing with the press is a big part of any job, but certainly the biggest clubs in this country, whether it be social media or the media now, or, ourselves and Sky Sports, we hang off there every word. So it's important someone can deal with that situation. I thought he dealt with it very well. And, as the sporting director said next to him, the next month might be quite quiet, and then it'll ramp up as we get into August, closer to the games, and we'll see what type of business Liverpool do, if they do any at all.
Jamie, it's always great to talk to you. Hopefully you can enjoy the game a little later. Thank you for now.
Thank you.